When cursed Alpha King Kael Ravencrest has only 3 days left to live, he desperately pleads with the defiant Omega healer Seraphina to kiss him before his heart turns to stone forever. But instead of submitting like any other Omega would, she shocks him by demanding something no one has ever asked of the mighty king. What could an Omega possibly want from an Alpha King that would leave him speechless and questioning everything he thought he knew about power? Thunder shook the castle walls like an angry giant's fist. Alpha King Kael Ravencrest pressed his face against the cold window glass, watching his soldiers drag their wounded friends through the gates below. His hands trembled as he gripped the stone ledge. Something dark was growing inside his chest, a coldness that spread a little more each day like winter creeping through his bones. The war had been raging for 2 long years. Enemy packs struck every few weeks, trying to steal his kingdom. But Kael wasn't losing because of the battles. He was dying because of something much worse. An ancient curse that ate at him from the inside like a hungry beast. Down in the muddy courtyard, a young woman moved between the hurt soldiers like a dancing flame. She wore a white dress that seemed to glow in the dim evening light. Her hair was the color of autumn leaves, and tiny silver bells woven into her braids made soft music when she walked. Every time she touched a wounded warrior, golden light flowed from her fingertips. The soldier's pain melted away like snow in spring. "Who is that?" Kael asked his guard captain, a gruff man with scars across his neck. "A new healer, Your Majesty. She arrived 3 days ago from the eastern villages. The other healers say she's unusual." Unusual was putting it mildly. Most healers were quiet and careful, always asking permission before helping anyone important. This one moved with confidence, like she belonged everywhere she went. She didn't bow to the higher-ranking soldiers or wait for orders. She just helped whoever hurt the most. Kael felt his inner wolf lift its head for the first time in weeks. His wolf spirit had been getting weaker as the curse spread through his body. But watching this strange healer made the wolf pace with sudden interest, like it smelled something important on the wind. A horn blasted 3 sharp notes across the valley. Another attack was coming fast. "Gather the fighters," Kael commanded, pulling on his leather armor, "and warn the healers to prepare for many wounded." The battle lasted until the sun painted the sky pink and gold. Kael fought with desperate fury, but the curse made him slower than before. His sword felt heavy in his hands. His enemies noticed his weakness and pressed their attack harder, thinking the mighty Alpha King was finally cracking. When the fighting ended with his victory, Kael stumbled back to the castle on unsteady legs. His chest felt like it was packed with ice that never melted. The curse was definitely winning this slow war inside his body. In the healing rooms, organized chaos ruled every corner. Wounded wolves lay on beds, benches, and even the floor. The smell of herbs mixed with the metallic scent of fresh wounds. In the center of it all, the new healer worked without stopping. Her golden healing light had grown dim from overuse, but her hands never paused. "You there?" Kael called to her, his voice rougher than usual. She looked up from wrapping a young soldier's broken arm. Her eyes were the deepest green he'd ever seen, like forest pools that held ancient secrets. "Yes, Your Majesty." "What do they call you?" Seraphina Moonwhisper. She didn't look away or drop her gaze like others always did. "And you're bleeding through your armor." Kael glanced down. His metal chestplate had a long gash across it. Dark red blood seeped through the gap slowly but steadily. "It's just a scratch." "Every wound matters to a healer." She stood up, wiping her hands on a clean cloth. "Sit down so I can fix it." "I don't take orders from anyone." "Then bleed to death standing up. Makes no difference to me." She turned back to her patient like the conversation was over. The entire room went silent as death. No one had ever spoken to the Alpha King with such casual disrespect. Ever. But instead of exploding with rage, Kael felt something unexpected bubble up in his chest. Admiration. This tiny healer had more real courage than most of his battle-hardened warriors. "All right," he said, settling onto an empty wooden stool. "Fix it." Seraphina's small hands began to glow as she placed them over his wound. The cut healed quickly under her touch, but Kael felt her healing light suddenly jerk back, like she'd touched a red-hot coal. "What's the matter?" he asked, studying her suddenly pale face. Her green eyes were wide with barely hidden fear. "Nothing important. The cut is completely healed." But her voice shook like autumn leaves in a strong wind. Kael knew she was lying through her teeth. Whatever she'd sensed when she healed him had frightened her badly, and if it scared someone with her obvious power, it should terrify him too. That night, sleep refused to come. Kael wandered through the empty castle halls, his bare feet silent on the cold stone floors. He couldn't stop thinking about the healer's shocked reaction. She'd felt something dark when she touched him, something that made her hands shake. His restless wandering brought him past the healing rooms. Through a crack in the wooden door, he could hear Seraphina talking quietly with an older healer. "The darkness is spreading faster than I expected," she was whispering. "The shadow magic around his heart. I've never encountered anything quite like it before. Is there any way to help him?" the older woman asked. "Perhaps, maybe, but it would require something very dangerous." Her voice dropped too low for him to catch the words. Kael's heart turned to ice in his chest. She knew about the curse. Somehow, this complete stranger had sensed what his royal healers had missed for months. The next morning brought another attack, but this battle was different from all the others. The enemy wolves weren't made of flesh and bone. They were creatures of pure shadow and swirling smoke, with burning red eyes that cut through the morning mist. They passed through solid stone walls like ghosts walking through air. Kael's silver sword sliced right through them without doing any damage. His razor-sharp claws couldn't even scratch their dark forms. But somehow, these shadow beasts could hurt him and his soldiers. Their smoky teeth bit deep, sending streams of ice through his veins with every wound. "Dark magic!" one of his fighters screamed in terror. "They're using forbidden shadow magic." The battle turned into a complete disaster. Kael's brave soldiers couldn't fight enemies they couldn't touch. The shadow wolves tore through their ranks like smoke drifting through a spider's web. Then Seraphina appeared on the bloody battlefield. Her small hands blazed with golden fire that hurt to look at directly. When she touched the shadow wolves, they shrieked like dying wind and suddenly became solid. Finally, Kael's fighters could wound them, but the effort drained her completely. By the time the last shadow wolf fell, she could barely stand upright. "How did you know the secret to fighting them?" Kael asked as his guards helped her stumble back toward the castle. "Because I've battled their kind before," she said weakly, breathing hard. "Someone is using very ancient, very evil magic against your kingdom." "Who would dare?" "The same witch who cursed your royal family 3 generations ago. She's returned from wherever she's been hiding, and she's not finished destroying the Ravencrest bloodline." Kael stopped walking so suddenly that his guards bumped into him. They looked confused by his reaction, but Seraphina met his shocked stare with sad understanding. "How long have you known the truth?" he asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "Since the very first moment I touched your battle wound yesterday. The curse is eating your heart from the inside out like acid. You have maybe 1 week left to live, probably much less." The words hit him like a war hammer to the chest. He'd suspected the curse was slowly killing him, but hearing it confirmed out loud made the terrible truth feel real and final. "Can you heal something this powerful?" Seraphina stayed quiet for a long, heavy moment. "There might be a way, but it would cost you something you've never given to anyone in your entire life. Name your price. Complete trust in someone you've known for less than a week." Her green eyes held his gaze without blinking. "The real question is this: are you brave enough to let a stranger help save you, or will you choose to die alone like a true king?" The royal throne room felt enormous when empty of people. Kael sat in his massive chair, made of carved black wood, staring at the heavy wooden doors where Seraphina would enter. He'd sent for her over an hour ago, but she still hadn't appeared. Most people practically ran when their king called for them. Apparently, village healers followed completely different rules. When the doors finally creaked open, she walked in like she visited royal throne rooms every single day. No rushing, no nervous glances around the fancy room. She'd changed from her blood-stained white healing dress into simple brown leather pants and a forest green shirt. Her beautiful auburn hair hung loose around her shoulders instead of being braided, and those musical silver bells were nowhere to be seen. "You wish to speak with me, Your Majesty?" She stopped about 10 feet from his throne but didn't bow or curtsy. "Come closer and sit down." He pointed to a comfortable chair he'd had moved near his throne. "We need to discuss private matters without my guards overhearing every word." She settled into the chair and folded her hands calmly in her lap. "Up close like this, He could see she was younger than he'd first thought, maybe 25 years old, while he'd recently turned 32. But her eyes looked much older, like they'd witnessed too much sadness and pain for someone so young. "Tell me everything about this curse," Kael said directly. "What specific things do you want to know? Start with how you recognized it so quickly, when my own royal healers missed it completely." Seraphina paused for a moment, like she was carefully deciding how much truth to share with him. "My grandmother was a professional curse breaker. She taught me to sense magical darkness before I learned to read words. When I placed my hands on your sword wound yesterday, I felt the shadow magic wrapped around your heart like iron chains." Iron chains? The curse is specially designed to make you feel completely alone and cut off from everyone who cares about you. The more isolated and lonely you become, the stronger and faster it grows. Eventually, it literally turns your beating heart into cold stone. When that finally happens, she let the sentence hang unfinished in the air. "When that happens, I die a very painful death." "Yes, exactly." Kael leaned forward in his throne. "You mentioned you might be able to heal it somehow. Tell me how." "Curse magic feeds on loneliness and stubborn pride like a hungry wolf. It grows much stronger when you refuse all help, when you insist on trying to carry every burden by yourself. The only way to break this particular curse is to do the exact opposite of what it wants." "Which means what, specifically?" "You have to trust someone completely and totally, not just with your royal secrets or your kingdom's safety. You have to trust them with your actual life, your beating heart, your very soul. You must let them carry part of your heavy burden along with you." Kael's inner wolf growled softly in the back of his mind. The idea of being that completely vulnerable to any person made both his human side and wolf side deeply uncomfortable. "Why would you even want to help me? You barely know who I am." Seraphina's hands suddenly clenched tight in her lap, and her knuckles turned white. "Because I've already watched this exact curse kill someone before. Someone I cared about more than my own life." "Who was it?" Her voice became very soft and sad. "My mate. His name was Thaddeus Brightmoon. He was a strong alpha from a pack that lived near my village. We were supposed to be married last spring when the flowers bloomed." Kael felt like someone had punched him hard in the stomach. She'd lost her chosen mate to the same curse that was slowly killing him right now. "I'm truly sorry for your loss." Thaddeus was incredibly stubborn and proud, always convinced he could handle every problem by himself without anyone's help. "Does that sound familiar to you?" Her green eyes looked directly into his. "I tried so hard to help him fight the curse, but he kept pushing me away. Said he would never risk putting me in any danger. 3 days later, his strong heart just stopped beating forever." "How can you be certain it was the same curse affecting him?" "Because the Void Witch herself appeared at his funeral to brag about her victory. She told everyone there that the Ravencrest curse could jump like a disease to anyone who got too close to your family bloodline. Thaddeus had been secretly helping you fight the rebel packs for months. That assistance made him a perfect target for her revenge." Hot anger burned in Kael's chest like swallowed fire. The curse hadn't just been slowly killing his royal bloodline for generations. It had been spreading like a plague to his friends and allies too. "Why didn't you tell me this crucial information yesterday?" "Because you weren't ready to hear such terrible news yet. You needed to see those shadow wolves with your own eyes first. You had to realize this war was much bigger than just enemy packs trying to steal your golden throne." A loud crash echoed from somewhere outside the throne room, followed by panicked shouting. Kael jumped up from his throne as his captain of guards burst through the doors without being announced. "Your Majesty, the Eastern Wall is under serious attack right now, but these aren't regular wolves like before. There." The guard's weathered face had gone pale with obvious fear. "More shadow wolves?" Kael asked grimly. "Much worse than that. These new ones can actually speak human words, and they're specifically asking for the healer by name." Seraphina went completely rigid in her chair like she'd been turned to stone. "They want me personally?" "They called for Seraphina Moonwhisper by her full name," the guard confirmed with a shaky voice. "They said to bring her to the eastern courtyard immediately, or they'll tear down the entire castle stone by stone." Kael's wolf snarled with fierce protective anger. "That will never happen while I still breathe." "Oh, that can easily be arranged, little king," a new voice said from the doorway like poisoned honey. Everyone spun around to see a woman made of shifting shadows and cold starlight. Her face was beautiful, but completely emotionless, like a perfect statue carved from blue ice. Her long hair moved and flowed without any wind, and her eyes glowed with silver-white light that hurt to look at. "Hello there, little king," the Void Witch said with a smile that showed far too many sharp teeth. "Hello, precious little healer. Are you ready to join your dead mate in the ground?" Seraphina stood up slowly from her chair. Her small hands began to glow with warm golden light that pushed back the shadows. "Stay far away from him, Morgana." "Oh, I'm not here for him today. Not quite yet, anyway." His heart still beat strongly, though not for much longer. The witch's terrible laugh sounded like glass breaking into 1,000 pieces. "I'm here for you, foolish child. You've been very naughty, trying to heal what I worked so very hard to break apart. You cannot stop me from helping people who need healing." "Can't I really?" The witch raised one pale hand, and thick darkness poured from her fingers like black smoke. "I gave your precious Thaddeus a similar choice, you know. Help me kill the king, or watch everyone he loved die very slowly and painfully. He chose quite poorly." "Thaddeus would never have helped you hurt anyone," Seraphina said with firm conviction. "Oh, sweet innocent child. Who exactly do you think told me when and where to strike the royal supply lines? Who do you think gave me the secret locations of the king's hidden escape routes?" The witch's cruel smile grew even wider. "Your beloved mate betrayed his precious king to try desperately to save your worthless life, and it still wasn't nearly enough to satisfy me." Seraphina staggered backward like she'd been slapped hard across the face. "That's completely impossible. Thaddeus died fighting your shadow wolves. He died fighting them because I didn't need his help anymore once I got what I wanted. When he became useless to me, he became disposable trash. Just like you will become once you help me finish what we started together." Kael stepped protectively between the witch and Seraphina. "She's not helping you with anything evil, isn't she, though? Tell me, little healer girl, what did you really come here to accomplish? Heal the king's curse completely, or make absolutely sure it finishes the job properly this time?" The massive throne room went silent as a grave. Kael felt ice form in his stomach as he slowly turned to look at Seraphina. Her face had turned white as fresh winter snow. "Answer her question," Kael said quietly, though his heart was already breaking into pieces. Seraphina's green eyes filled with tears that threatened to spill over. "It's not what you think it is." "Then, what exactly is it?" But even as he asked the question, Kael's heart was shattering. The one person who might have been able to save his life had been working for his greatest enemy all along. The witch laughed again, a sound like nails on stone. "Oh, this is absolutely delicious. She hasn't told you the very best part yet, has she? Tell him, child. Tell him what you really are underneath all those lies." Blood splattered across the castle walls like dark paint as shadow creatures poured through cracks in the air itself. Kael's sword sang through the morning mist, cutting down enemies that shouldn't exist in the real world. These weren't normal wolves, they were made of pure darkness, with glowing red eyes and teeth that dripped poison. "Behind you!" Seraphina's voice cut through the chaos. Kael spun just in time to dodge claws that would have ripped his throat open. His black wolf wanted to come out and fight, but something was wrong. Every time he tried to shift, pain shot through his chest like lightning. The curse was getting stronger. A child's scream made his blood turn cold. Little Tommy from the village was trapped under a fallen beam, shadow wolves closing in around him. Without thinking, Kael threw himself between the boy and certain death. Claws raked across his back, tearing through his armor like paper. "Get away from him!" Seraphina appeared beside them, her hands blazing with golden light. The shadow wolves hissed and backed away from her healing magic. She knelt beside the injured boy, her power flowing into his broken body. But the real shock came when the Void Witch herself stepped out of the largest shadow crack. She looked exactly like the paintings in the castle, tall and thin with white hair that moved like it was underwater. Her black dress seemed to be made of the same darkness as her wolf army. "Hello, great-grandson," she said with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Ready to join your ancestors in the stone?" Kael's heart hammered against his ribs. Nobody had told him the witch was family. "You're supposed to be dead. Death is such a boring word. I prefer differently alive." She waved her hand, and more shadow wolves appeared. Your great-great-grandfather broke his promise to me. Now every king in your bloodline pays the price." The battle raged around them as Kael tried to process this news. His ancestor had made some kind of deal with this creature? What promise could have been so important? "What did he promise you?" Kael asked, dodging another attack. "Love," the witch said simply. "He promised to love me forever. Instead, he married some pretty little princess and forgot all about poor Morgana." A woman scorned. The oldest story in the book, but with deadly consequences that had lasted for generations. Kael felt sick as he realized how many of his family had died because of one man's broken heart. "The curse will claim you in 3 days," Morgana continued. "Your heart will turn to stone, just like your father's did, and his father's before him. Unless what?" Her laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Unless you can find someone willing to share your death. But who would be stupid enough to die for a king?" Behind her, Seraphina was still healing the wounded boy. Golden light poured from her hands like warm honey, mending broken bones and closing cuts. She looked up and met Kael's eyes across the battlefield. Something passed between them, understanding, maybe, or recognition. The witch noticed his glance. "Oh, how precious. The big bad Alpha King has found himself an Omega pet. Too bad she'll have to watch you die." Red rage flooded Kael's vision. Nobody talked about Seraphina like that. His wolf finally broke free, transforming him into a massive black beast with silver eyes. But even in wolf form, he could feel the curse spreading through his body like ice water in his veins. The battle lasted until dawn. When the last shadow wolf fell apart into smoke, Morgana was already gone. She'd made her point and delivered her message. Kael had 3 days to live, and now everyone knew it. In the aftermath, Kael found himself sitting on the steps of the Great Hall, still in human form but shaking from exhaustion. His beta approached carefully. "My lord, the healers want to examine you." "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown timer. "No, you're not." Seraphina appeared beside him, her white healer's robe stained with blood and dirt. "I can smell the curse on you now. It's like rotting flowers mixed with winter frost." Other people started to gather around, drawn by the commotion. Pack members, servants, guards, all of them, staring at their Alpha King like he was already dead. Whispers started spreading through the crowd. "Is it true? Is the king really cursed?" My grandmother told stories about the stone heart curse. "What happens to the pack if he dies?" Kael stood up slowly, trying to project strength he didn't feel. "Everyone, go back to your duties. The situation is under control." But Seraphina didn't leave. She stood there studying him with those sharp green eyes, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "We need to talk," she said quietly, privately. "About what?" "About the fact that you just lied to your entire pack." Her voice was gentle but firm. "And about the fact that there might be a way to save you." Kael's heart skipped a beat. Hope was dangerous, but he couldn't help feeling a tiny spark of it. "You know something about the curse?" "I know about sacrifice," she said. "And I know about love. Sometimes they're the same thing." The way she said it made his wolf sit up and pay attention. There was history in her voice, old pain that matched his own. "My private study, 1 hour." Kael looked around at the damage to his castle, his people. "And Seraphina, thank you for saving the boy." She nodded and started to walk away, then paused. "Your Majesty, the curse feeds on loneliness. Don't spend the next 3 days alone." As she disappeared into the crowd of people cleaning up battle damage, Kael realized something that made his chest tight with an emotion he couldn't name. For the first time since becoming king, he didn't want to be alone. "The last time I saw a stone heart curse, the man died screaming." Seraphina's words hit Kael like a physical blow as she closed the door to his private study behind her. The room felt smaller with her in it, more alive. Afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, making the dust motes dance like tiny golden spirits. She moved around his desk, not asking permission, and started examining the ancient books scattered across its surface. "You've seen this before?" Kael asked, settling into his leather chair. His body ached from the morning's battle, but it was nothing compared to the cold spreading through his chest. "My first mate died from it." The simple words carried the weight of old grief. She pulled a slim volume from the shelf, its cover marked with symbols Kael didn't recognize. Different witch, same curse. I was too young then, too inexperienced to understand what was happening until it was too late. Kael's wolf stirred uneasily. The idea that this small Omega had loved and lost before made something twist in his stomach. How old were you? 18. Marcus was 25, a beta in my birth pack. Seraphina opened the book, scanning pages covered with handwritten notes. The witch cursed him because he rejected her daughter's marriage proposal. Said no man who couldn't love properly deserved to live. But you said there's a way to break it. Seraphina was quiet for a long moment, her finger tracing words on a yellowed page. There is, but it requires something most alphas would never consider. I'm listening. The curse works by turning the victim's heart to stone, piece by piece. It feeds on isolation, on the belief that strength means bearing burdens alone. She looked up from the book, her green eyes intense. It can be transferred, but only through complete trust. The cursed person has to willingly let someone else carry part of the burden. Kael frowned. Transfer it to who? Someone who loves them enough to risk everything. Her voice got softer. Someone willing to die alongside them if the transfer fails. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Kael's practical mind immediately started thinking through the implications. As king, he had plenty of people who served him. But love? Real love. The kind that would make someone risk death? You're talking about a mate bond, he said slowly. More than that. A true soul bond. The kind that makes two people into one person with two bodies. Seraphina closed the book with a soft thud. Marcus and I weren't soul bonded. We were just young and thought regular love would be enough. We were wrong. And you think I can form a soul bond in 3 days? I think you're already halfway there. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back. The way you looked at me during the battle. The way your wolf responded when the witch threatened me. That's not just attraction, Kael. That's recognition. His name sounded different when she said it. Not Your Majesty or My Lord. Just his name, plain and simple. It made his chest warm despite the curse spreading through his body. Even if that's true, he said carefully, soul bonds take time to develop. Months. Sometimes years. Usually, yes. Seraphina moved to the window, looking out at the gardens below. But trauma can speed up the process. Shared danger, life or death situations, protecting each other, all of that can create bonds faster than normal courting. Kael joined her at the window. Below them, children played in the garden, while their parents worked to repair battle damage. Normal life continuing despite the chaos. He wondered if he'd live long enough to see them grow up. What happened to Marcus? He asked quietly. He refused to let me share the curse. Said he wouldn't risk my life for his mistakes. Her reflection in the window looked sad and tired. So I had to watch the man I loved turn to stone, piece by piece, while I stood helpless beside his bed. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smarter than he was. She turned to face him, and he could see tears gathering in her eyes. I've spent 3 years learning everything I could about these curses, preparing for the day I might face one again. I won't watch another good man die from pride. Something clicked in Kael's mind. You didn't come to this castle by accident, did you? Seraphina's cheeks turned pink. I heard rumors about strange shadow attacks, about a curse on the royal bloodline. I came here hoping I was wrong, but knowing I'd probably be needed. You came here to save me. The realization hit him like lightning. A complete stranger. Not to save you specifically. To save whoever needed saving. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But yes, when I saw you this morning, when I scented the curse on you, I knew why I was really here. Kael's wolf was practically purring with satisfaction. His human side was more cautious. This soul bond process. How does it work? Complete honesty, complete trust, complete vulnerability. Seraphina counted off on her fingers. No walls, no secrets, no holding back. Most alphas would rather die. Most alphas don't have a choice between death and trust. Don't they? Her question was soft but pointed. How many times have you chosen to handle problems alone instead of asking for help? How many times have you hidden your feelings because showing emotion wasn't kingly? Every day, Kael realized. Every single day since he'd taken the crown. The curse doesn't just turn hearts to stone, Seraphina continued. It reveals hearts that were already stone. If you're going to survive this, You have to be willing to let someone see all of you. The good parts, the bad parts, the scared parts, the parts that don't feel worthy of love. And if I can't, then in 2.5 days, there will be a new king, and I'll have to live with the knowledge that I failed twice. Her voice cracked on the last word. Kael reached out without thinking and touched her face, wiping away a tear with his thumb. The contact sent electricity through his whole body, and he saw her eyes widen with the same sensation. I don't know how to be vulnerable, he admitted. I've been a king since I was 16. Before that, I was being trained to be king. I'm not sure there's anything underneath the crown. There is. Her hand covered his, keeping it pressed against her cheek. I can see it when you look at your people, when you protected that child this morning, when you apologized for Marcus, even though his death wasn't your fault. What if it's not enough? Then we find out together. Seraphina's smile was shaky but real. But Kael, we start right now. No more, Your Majesty. No more keeping distance. If we're going to do this, we do it as equals. He nodded slowly, terrified and hopeful at the same time. Where do we start? With the truth. She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her scent, wildflowers and clean rain. Tell me something you've never told anyone. Something that scares you. Kael looked into her green eyes and felt something shift in his chest. The walls he'd built over years of kingship cracked just a little. I dream about my father every night, he said quietly. He died from this curse when I was 16, and in the dreams he begs me to save him, but I never can. I always wake up right when his heart stops beating. What scares you about the dreams? That I'll become him. That I'll die the same way, alone and afraid, leaving my people without a king. His voice got rougher. That I'll never be brave enough to let someone love the real me. Seraphina's free hand found his chest, resting over his heart. Your heart's still warm, she said softly. Still beating strong. We have time. Do we? He could feel the curse like ice in his veins, spreading a little more with each passing hour. We have now, she said firmly. And now is where trust begins. Show me your scars, Seraphina whispered, her fingers hovering just above Kael's chest as they sat in the hidden garden behind the castle walls. The Alpha King jerked back like she'd struck him. No one had ever asked to see the marks that covered his body, marks from battles, from the curse slowly eating him alive, from a childhood spent learning that weakness meant death. His wolf paced nervously under his skin, torn between the desire to bear everything to this strange, fearless Omega and the instinct to protect the secrets he'd carried alone for so long. Why? His voice came out rougher than he intended. Because trust isn't just words, Kael. It's showing someone the parts of yourself you think will make them run away. Her green eyes never left his face, reading every micro-expression like she was solving a puzzle. You want me to help break this curse, but you won't even let me see what it's done to you. Around them, night-blooming flowers released their sweet perfume into the cool air. Somewhere in the distance, guards walked their patrol routes, their footsteps echoing off stone walls. But here, in this secret pocket of the castle grounds, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. Slowly, his hands shaking in a way that had nothing to do with the curse, Kael began to unlace his shirt. The fabric fell away to reveal a chest crisscrossed with silver scars, some from claws, some from blades, and others from burns that had never healed quite right. But worst of all were the black veins that spread from his heart, like cracks in broken glass, pulsing with dark magic that grew stronger each day. Seraphina's breath caught, but she didn't look away. Instead, she reached out with steady fingers and traced one of the oldest scars, a jagged line that ran from his collarbone to his ribs. This one, she said softly, happened when you were young. It wasn't a question. Somehow, she could read the story written in his damaged skin. 12, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. My father thought I was getting too soft, so he threw me into the fighting pits with wolves twice my size. The memory tasted bitter on his tongue. Said a true alpha should never back down from a fight, no matter the odds. Her fingers moved to another scar, this one shaped like a crescent moon. And this? 15, a challenger from the Eastern Pacts. He was trying to prove that our bloodline was weak. Kael's jaw clenched at the memory. I killed him, but not before he nearly tore my throat out. Did you want to kill him? The question caught him off guard. No one had ever asked him that before, whether he'd wanted to take a life, whether the violence that defined his world was something he chose or something that chose him. "No," he said finally, the admission falling from his lips like a stone into still water. "I wanted to be anywhere else. I wanted to be reading in the library, or learning about healing herbs from the castle's old medicine woman, or just being normal." Seraphina's eyes softened, and she leaned closer, her warmth cutting through the chill that had settled in his bones. What happened to that boy who wanted to heal instead of hurt? He learned that wanting something different doesn't make it possible. Kael's voice turned bitter. "Alphas don't get to choose gentle paths. We're born to fight, to lead, to carry burdens that would crush anyone else. That boy you're asking about? He died the day I took the crown." But even as he said the words, he wondered if they were really true. Because sitting here with Seraphina, sharing secrets he'd never told another soul, he felt something stirring in his chest that had nothing to do with the curse. Something that felt suspiciously like hope. "I don't think he's dead," she said, her voice so quiet he had to strain to hear it. "I think he's just been hiding, waiting for someone to tell him it's safe to come out." Before he could respond, she did something that shattered every expectation he'd built up about Omegas and submission and the natural order of their world. She took his scarred hands in hers and brought them to her own throat, pressing his fingers against the pulse point where a mate's bite would someday rest. "My turn," she whispered. And then she began to tell him about the night her first mate died, not the sanitized version she'd shared before, but the real story, full of blood and screaming, and the horrible moment when she realized that all her healing power meant nothing if the person she loved refused to let her use it. "Thaddeus was leading a scouting mission," she began, her voice steady despite the tears that had started to fall. "Intelligence said it was supposed to be safe, just a quick look at the enemy's movements, but it was a trap." Kael's hands tightened on hers, offering what comfort he could as she continued. "They brought him back barely alive, his chest torn open, bleeding faster than I could heal him. But the worst part wasn't the wounds, it was the poison on the enemy's claws, something designed to block healing magic." Her voice cracked. "I begged him to let me try anyway, to let me risk sharing the poison between us so we could fight it together. But he refused, said he wouldn't let me die for his mistakes. So he chose to die alone rather than risk your life." "Yes," the word came out like a sob. "And I've spent every day since wondering if I could have saved him. If I'd been strong enough to override his choice and force the healing bond anyway." They sat in silence for a long moment, two broken souls sharing their deepest wounds under a sky full of stars. Finally, Kael spoke. "Is that why you're here? To make sure I don't make the same choice he did?" Seraphina looked up at him, her green eyes bright with tears and something fiercer determination maybe, or desperation. "Partly," she admitted, "but also because when I look at you, I see something I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" "A future worth fighting for." The words hung between them like a bridge, offering passage from the loneliness they'd both carried for so long to something new and terrifying and wonderful. And for the first time since the curse began eating away at his heart, Kael found himself believing that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to face the darkness alone. The attack came not with fangs and claws, but with whispers that slithered through the castle walls like poison gas. Seraphina woke to find servants avoiding her eyes, guards stepping aside when she passed, and a silence that followed her footsteps wherever she went. Something had changed overnight, something that made the air itself feel hostile and sharp against her skin. "What's happening?" she asked Elena, the head cook who had always greeted her with warm smiles and fresh bread. But Elena just shook her head and hurried away, clutching her apron like a shield. It wasn't until Seraphina reached the great hall that she understood. There, posted on every pillar and wall, were notices bearing the royal seal. Her heart sank as she read the words that would change everything. By order of the Royal Council, the Omega, known as Seraphina Moonwhisper, is hereby summoned to face charges of witchcraft, sedition, and the attempted murder of His Majesty, Alpha King Kael Ravencrest. "Impossible," she breathed. But even as she said it, she could see the fear in the eyes of everyone around her. Fear of her. Fear of what she might be capable of. Seraphina. The voice belonged to Captain Marcus Ironhold, Kael's most trusted guard. But instead of the respectful nod she usually received, his hand rested on the hilt of his sword. The council requires your immediate presence. She wanted to ask where Kael was, why he wasn't here to explain that this was all some terrible mistake. But the grim expression on Marcus's face told her that whatever was happening, the Alpha King wasn't coming to save her. The council chamber felt like a tomb when she entered, all dark wood and shadows that seemed to press in from every corner. 7 elderly alphas sat in judgment, their faces cold as winter stone. At their head sat Counselor Blackwater, a man whose hatred for Omegas was as legendary as his political cunning. Seraphina Moonwhisper. Blackwater's voice echoed through the chamber like a death knell. You stand accused of using dark magic to bewitch our king, of plotting to steal his power through forbidden mating bonds, and of bringing a curse upon our lands that threatens every pack under our protection. The accusations hit her like physical blows, each one more ridiculous than the last. But she could see the fear in the counselor's eyes, fear of change, fear of an Omega who didn't know her place, fear of anything that challenged the order they'd spent their lives protecting. Where is Kael? She demanded, lifting her chin despite the terror crawling up her spine. Where is your king? His Majesty is indisposed, Blackwater said, his smile sharp as a blade. The curse you helped place upon him has worsened considerably since you arrived. Quite the coincidence, wouldn't you say? I didn't curse him. I'm trying to save him. By seducing him into trusting an Omega with access to his most private chambers? By convincing him to lower the magical wards that protect this castle? Blackwater stood, his voice rising with practiced outrage. We have witnesses who saw you speaking to shadow creatures in the gardens. Guards who heard you chanting in languages that predate the formation of our packs. Each lie was crafted perfectly, designed to play on the deepest fears of a society that had always believed Omegas were meant to serve, not led. Seraphina could see the trap closing around her, could feel the noose of suspicion tightening with every word. But then she heard something that made her blood run cold. Kael's voice, weak and strained, coming from behind the great doors that led to the king's private quarters. Please, he was saying to someone she couldn't see, don't let them hurt her. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Just don't hurt Seraphina. The voice that answered made her knees buckle with recognition. It was female, ancient, and dripping with malicious amusement. Oh, my dear boy, the Void Witch purred. Hurting her is exactly what I need to complete my masterpiece. You see, the curse isn't just killing you, it's been feeding on your isolation, growing stronger every day you refuse to let anyone close. But now that you've opened your heart to her, now that you've formed a genuine bond, I can use that connection to destroy you both. Seraphina's mind raced as the pieces fell into place. The timing of the accusations, the convenient witnesses, the way Blackwater seemed to know exactly what to say to turn the council against her. It was all orchestrated. The Void Witch hadn't just cursed Kael's bloodline. She'd spent decades placing her pawns throughout the kingdom, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. You're working with her, Seraphina said, staring at Blackwater with new understanding. You're working with the Void Witch. Blackwater's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something hungry and twisted underneath. I'm working for the natural order of things, girl. Alphas rule, Omegas serve, and dangerous magic stays buried where it belongs. His eyes gleamed with fanatic fervor. The witch promised that once Kael is dead and you're executed for his murder, she'll restore the old ways. No more Omegas pretending to be healers. No more questions about the divine right of alpha blood to rule over all others. Behind the great doors, Kael's voice had grown weaker, punctuated by sounds that made Seraphina's heart clench with terror. The witch was torturing him, using their newly formed bond to inflict pain that would echo through both their souls. Let me go to him, she pleaded, dropping to her knees before the council. Please, if you have any mercy left in your hearts, let me try to save him. The only salvation for our king, Blackwater said, signaling to the guards, comes through your death. Seize her. But as the guards moved forward, something extraordinary happened. The great doors burst open, and Kael stumbled into the chamber, his face gray with pain but his eyes blazing with fury. Blood stained his shirt, and the black veins of the curse had spread across his neck like a collar of shadows. But he was alive and conscious and absolutely furious. Touch her, he snarled, his alpha power rolling through the room like thunder. "And I'll tear your throats out with my bare hands." The guards froze, caught between their fear of Blackwater's political power and their instinctual terror of an enraged Alpha King. Even weakened by the curse, Kael was still the most dangerous predator in the room. "Your Majesty," Blackwater said, his voice oily with false concern, "you shouldn't be here. The witch's poison has clearly affected your judgment." "The only poison here," Kael cut him off, his voice deadly quiet, "is your betrayal of the crown you swore to serve." And then, in front of the entire council, the Alpha King did something that shattered every tradition, every expectation, every rule that had governed their society for 1,000 years. He knelt before Seraphina, took her hands in his, and spoke words that would change everything. "I, Kael Ravencrest, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, formally request that you, Seraphina Moonwhisper, accept the position of Queen and equal ruler of our lands." The silence that followed was so complete that Seraphina could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. But what happened next would determine whether they lived to see another sunrise, because somewhere in the shadows, the Void Witch was laughing, and her laughter sounded like the end of the world. Lightning split the sky as Seraphina grabbed Kael's dying hand, her touch burning against his ice-cold skin. The curse was winning. Black veins crawled up his neck like twisted vines, and his breathing came in short, painful gasps. Around them, the throne room crackled with dark magic as the Void Witch cackled with glee. "You're too late, little healer," the witch sneered. "In moments, his heart will be solid stone." But Seraphina wasn't listening. She pressed her palms against Kael's chest, feeling the curse's icy tendrils wrapping around his heart like cruel fingers. Most healers would try to fight it, to push it away. She had a different plan, one that would either save them both or destroy her completely. "What are you doing?" Kael whispered, his voice barely audible. "Something crazy," she said, closing her eyes. "Trust me." Instead of pushing the curse away, Seraphina opened herself to it. The darkness rushed into her like freezing water, making her scream as it tore through her body. But she didn't let go. She pulled more of it into herself, taking Kael's pain into her own heart. The witch's laughter died. "Impossible! You'll kill yourself." "Maybe," Seraphina gasped, her body shaking violently. "But I won't let him die alone." The curse fought her, trying to destroy her from the inside. It felt like swallowing broken glass mixed with ice. Her vision blurred, and blood ran from her nose. But something amazing happened as she shared the curse's weight. It began to change. The darkness couldn't handle being split between two hearts that beat for each other. Kael's eyes flew open, no longer gray with death but bright with life. He could feel what she was doing, the incredible sacrifice she was making for him. Without thinking, he grabbed her hands and pushed his own strength into her, sharing not just the curse but his wolf's power too. "Together," he said firmly. The curse shrieked as it found itself facing something it had never encountered before. Two souls willingly sharing one burden. Like a fire trying to burn water, it began to weaken and transform. The icy darkness became warm light. The pain became strength, and the curse became something else entirely. Seraphina's eyes snapped open, glowing with golden fire. She wasn't just a healer anymore. She was something new, something powerful. The curse hadn't been destroyed. It had been reborn as a bond between them that nothing could break. "No!" the Void Witch screamed, raising her staff to strike them both down. But Kael was already moving. His wolf form exploded from his human shape, larger and stronger than ever before. The curse that had been killing him now fed him power beyond imagination. He leaped at the witch, his jaws closing around her throat before she could cast another spell. The witch crumbled to dust, her final scream echoing through the castle. Her shadow wolves vanished like smoke, leaving only silence and the smell of magic in the air. Kael shifted back to human form, catching Seraphina as she swayed on her feet. They were both changed now. She could feel his wolf's strength flowing through her veins, and he could feel her healing light warming his heart. The bond between them pulsed like a second heartbeat, strong and steady. "How did you know that would work?" he asked, brushing her hair from her face. She smiled weakly. "I didn't. I just knew I couldn't watch another person I love die because they were too proud to let me help." "Another person you love?" He raised an eyebrow. Her cheeks turned pink. "Did I say that out loud?" Instead of answering with words, Kael kissed her. It was gentle at first, then deeper, as he felt their bond strengthen with each heartbeat. She tasted like sunshine and hope, everything his dark world had been missing. When they broke apart, Seraphina's eyes were bright with tears. So what happens now? I'm not exactly a normal Omega anymore. Kael looked around the throne room at his pack members who were staring at them with wonder and respect. His beta approached carefully, bowing to both of them. Your Majesty, the beta said. Your queen. Queen. The word hung in the air like a promise. Seraphina had saved not just his life but his entire kingdom. She deserved to rule beside him, not behind him. Will you, Kael asked softly, taking her hand, be my queen? My partner in everything? She looked at their joined hands, seeing how perfectly they fit together. The curse had tried to destroy them, but instead it had shown them something beautiful, that they were stronger together than apart. Ask me properly, she said with a mischievous smile. Kael dropped to one knee right there in the throne room, in front of his entire pack. Seraphina Moonwhisper, will you marry me? Will you help me rule this kingdom and be my partner in all things? Yes, she said, pulling him to his feet. But only if you promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll face everything together from now on. No more carrying burdens alone. I promise, he said, sealing it with another kiss, as their pack cheered around them. The morning sun painted the ancient oak tree gold as Seraphina stood in her room, staring at herself in the mirror. Her wedding dress was simple, but beautiful white silk that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Around her neck, the silver pendant had transformed into something magnificent, a collar of twisted silver and gold that pulsed with warm magic. Are you nervous? Asked her friend Maya, adjusting the winter roses in Seraphina's hair. Terrified, Seraphina admitted. What if I'm not good enough to be a queen? Maya laughed. The woman who faced down a void witch and saved the Alpha King is worried about being good enough. You've got to be kidding. A soft knock interrupted them. Come in, Seraphina called. To her surprise, it wasn't one of her ladies-in-waiting. It was Elena, the former rebel leader who had once tried to kill Kael. The scarred woman stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a small wrapped package. I wanted to give you this, Elena said quietly, as an apology and a thank you. Seraphina took the package, unwrapping it carefully. Inside was a beautiful silver bracelet engraved with wolf symbols from both the royal pack and the rebel packs. It's gorgeous, Seraphina breathed. But why are you thanking me? Elena's tough expression softened. Because you showed us that strength isn't about fighting alone. My pack was dying because we were too proud to ask for help. After seeing what you did, we realized we were wrong. We're all one pack now, Seraphina said, fastening the bracelet around her wrist. No more rebels, no more royals, just wolves taking care of each other. Elena nodded, tears in her eyes. Your Majesty, it's an honor to serve under you. As Elena left, Maya whistled low. If you can turn your enemies into friends before the wedding even starts, you're going to be an amazing queen. Meanwhile, across the castle, Kael was having his own moment of doubt. He stood in his chambers, struggling with the ceremonial armor he hadn't worn since his father's funeral. It was heavy and uncomfortable, but tradition demanded it. Having second thoughts? His beta, Marcus, asked from the doorway. About marrying Seraphina? Never. Kael's voice was firm. About being worthy of her? Every second. Marcus chuckled. The woman literally shared a death curse with you. I think she's made her feelings pretty clear. She saved my life in more ways than one, Kael said, finally getting the armor straps right. Before her, I thought being a king meant being alone, carrying everything by myself. She taught me that real strength comes from letting people help you. And now, you get to spend the rest of your life learning from her, Marcus said with a grin. Poor bastard. Kael laughed, feeling some of his nervousness fade away. Through their bond, he could feel Seraphina's own mix of excitement and worry. It was strange and wonderful, having someone else's emotions mixing with his own. The ceremony took place in the castle's great courtyard, decorated with thousands of silver lights that twinkled like stars. Members of both the royal pack and the former rebel packs sat together, their children playing in the aisles while their parents watched the historic moment unfold. As Seraphina walked down the aisle, Kael felt his breath catch. She was radiant, glowing with happiness and magic. The silver collar at her throat caught the sunlight, sending rainbow sparkles across her dress. But it was her smile that nearly brought him to his knees, pure joy and love directed straight at him. The ceremony was beautiful but simple. They spoke vows they had written themselves, promising to face every challenge as partners, to rule with wisdom and compassion, and to never let pride come between them and the people they loved. "Do you, Kael Ravencrest, take Seraphina Moonwhisper to be your wife, your queen, and your partner in all things?" asked the Pack's elder. "I do," Kael said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "Do you, Seraphina Moonwhisper, take Kael Ravencrest to be your husband, your king, and your partner in all things?" "I do," Seraphina said, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. "Then by the power of the ancient pact bonds, I declare you mated for life. You may kiss your queen." Kael didn't need to be told twice. He pulled Seraphina into his arms and kissed her as their pack erupted in cheers. Fireworks exploded overhead, painting the sky in brilliant colors. But all Kael could see was his wife's face, bright with love and laughter. The celebration lasted long into the night. Former enemies danced together, children from different packs played as one group, and for the first time in years, the Northern Territories felt truly united. Seraphina and Kael moved through the crowd together, greeting their people not as distant rulers but as friends and family. Later, as the last guests were heading home, Seraphina and Kael found themselves alone under the ancient oak tree, where their journey had truly begun. The silver collar around her neck pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of their shared heartbeat. "Any regrets?" Kael asked, echoing the question from their first night together. Seraphina smiled, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. "Only one." "What's that?" "I wish we could do it all over again, just to see the look on that witch's face when she realized love was stronger than her curse." Kael laughed, spinning her around until her skirts flew out like wings. "I love you, Queen Seraphina." "I love you too, King Kael," she said as he set her down. "Now and always." As they walked back toward the castle hand in hand, snow began to fall, but it was warm snow, magical snow that melted into golden sparkles before it touched the ground. Their story was ending, but their life together was just beginning. In the distance, a wolf howled not in loneliness or pain, but in pure happiness. The sound was picked up by other voices, until the entire pack was singing together under the stars, their voices united in one beautiful song of hope and love. The curse was broken, the kingdom was united, and two hearts beat as one forever.